Do you hate French defense players as much as I do? If so, you're going to love the Milner-Berry Gambit. Despite how dumb the name of it sounds, this Gambit is actually super dangerous, and if a French player walks into it, you can practically win on autopilot if you know the tactics. Today, I'm going to break down how to use this line and show you some games where I crushed 2,000 rated opponents on chess.com. Let's go over the theory so you can see what I'm talking about. So we're going to start with pawn e4, and the opponent is going to play the French, which starts with pawn e6. We're then going to go pawn d4, and the French is when the opponent goes pawn d5. Now, there are different branch off points for the French opening. The Milner-Berry Gambit is against the advanced variation. So what we're going to do is we're going to push this pawn. The opponent will go pawn c5. This is very mainline French. 99% of your games will go this way if you're playing a French player because they all think the same. They learn the same 10 moves and they like to play their boring little games every single time. We're going to defend the center with pawn c3. And it's important to know what the goal of the French player is. And what they want to do is put maximum pressure on the center with their following moves. That being said, the opponent is going to go knight c6, and we're going to defend the center with knight f3. And now the opponent is going to put maximum pressure on the center with queen b6, and we're going to respond bishop d3. This is an important move and something you have to remember. The goal in the Milner-Berry Gambit is we're actually going to give up this d-pawn, which seems counterintuitive, but it helps us get early development and try to checkmate the opponent and make the French player feel really bad about themselves. Now, some people might be worried, what if they take the pawn here? Well, even if we weren't playing a Gambit line where we're giving away the d-pawn, that move doesn't actually win the pawn. Even though they have 3 attackers and we only have 2 defenders, it doesn't win the pawn, and let me show you why. If they took and we took back, and they took back with the knight, and we took back with the knight, and finally they take with the queen, we have this check with the bishop, and we would win the queen and win the game. Knowing that, the opponent won't take this pawn. A move the French player likes to do to stop that tactic is bishop d7. You want to see this move. This is a great move, and this means they are falling right into the gambit that we want them to fall into. So now they are threatening to win this pawn because we don't have that tactic at the end. That's a check because the light square bishop is here. So what are we going to do? Well, it's a gambit. We're not going to defend it. We're actually just going to completely give away this d-pawn. We're going to castle. And this is where the fun begins. Now the opponent is going to take this pawn because they can win it. We don't care. Now we're going to respond rook e1, and we're just defending the center for some upcoming moves in case the queen drops back to c7 or something like that. This is our branch off point. There's a lot of different moves the opponent can make here. The first one I want to go over is the opponent takes the c-pawn. So let's go through that. Let's say the opponent takes the c-pawn and we take back with the knight. We want to develop a piece and take a pawn at the same time. It's great. Now there's 2 moves the opponent can make with the dark square bishop that are both bad. One is c5, the other is b4. Let's go over both of those. First of all, let's start with bishop c5. Now, this looks like it makes a threat with them taking the f-pawn with check and winning the rook. This actually isn't a threat at all, and it's a pretty bad move. So we're going to go knight a4, we attack the queen, we attack the dark square bishop, and you might be thinking, what the hell, that doesn't stop the threat at all. They're going to take it anyways. You're right, they are going to take it anyways, but it does stop the threat. And the reason is, we're just going to slide our king to f1, and now this queen is still under attack, and it has nowhere to go that defends the bishop, and they can attack the knight, but our queen defends the knight. So the most common move here is queen a5, and our almighty king is actually just going to take this bishop, and we're up a piece. So that is already winning, and that's why that's a bad move. Let's back up one more time. Let's say instead of going to c5, they went dark square bishop b4. So they go b4, and we're going to attack the bishop with the pawn. And this is an advanced concept, but it'll make sense after I go through it. Now they're going to take this knight because if they back up, this is a bad move because we trap them. And they just moved it out. The reason they're not going to e7 is because they want to keep that square for the knight, because if you can see, the knight can't go to f6, and if they ever go to h6, our dark square bishop always has a scope on them, and they'd have to take back with a pawn, which in some cases might be good, but for the most part is really bad in French games. Let me back up. They're at b4. We attack them with the pawn. They're going to take the knight, and we're going to take back with the pawn. Now, the opponent is going to finish their development. You will almost always see knight e7, and this very important move pawn a4. Pawn a4 has a really hidden threat, and you might think it's to push and maybe force the queen away. It's not. The point is to go bishop a3 and attack this king. And this is why the Milnerberry Gambit is so dangerous. The opponent can't even castle here, because if they castle, we do something called a Greek gift sacrifice. They'll take with the king, and then we have a check with the knight, and if they move forward, we're going to go behind the knight with the queen, and wherever we move, that'll be a check. If they attack us with the pawn, we can always just move back, and this is completely winning for white. This is a huge attack. I'm not going to go over any checkmate patterns. I'll show these in some of the game reviews I do in a bit, but already the opponent can't castle, and that's important to know because we have that Greek gift sacrifice. So let's go back and say, instead of castling, the opponent goes knight g6. Well, we're now going to go bishop a3 because not only is this an insanely powerful piece, the opponent can't castle. And this move is why we went rook e1, because we're defending that center pawn twice and we don't have to spend an extra move defending it again. And we just have a completely winning position here. So you might be wondering what some follow-ups are. The opponent can castle long, which is really, really bad. This actually gives us +4 already. We can put the bishop out here. If they castle long, we can go rook b1. But you'll notice, like, I'm even struggling to find a good move for the opponent in this position. Maybe what they could do is just a waiting move with pawn h6. But what we're going to start doing is rook b1. And look how active all of our pieces are. We could even take the knight here. I mean, we could plant our dark squared bishop on d6 at any point. And this is a completely winning position. So it's really easy for the opponent to go wrong with the dark squared bishop on the first move after they take the pawn. Let's go over some other moves. If they go knight e7 first, the way we're always going to respond to knight e7 is to push the h-pawn to h4. And this is true across all variations of the Milnerberry Gambit, not only when they take the c-pawn, because we always want to discourage them from going knight g6. And the reason is because we want to push h5 again and force them back. And again, we just have a really solid position. We can attack the queen here with bishop e3. It's a common move. And here they can push the d-pawn, and you might be scared of this, but this is actually a really bad move. And again, this shows why the Milnerberry Gambit is so powerful. This looks like it forks pieces, right? It actually doesn't win anything. It loses a pawn because we're going to take this. They're going to take back with their knight. They're pinned, but we don't even care about the pin. We're going to take the knight anyways, and they're going to take the bishop back, and we're going to go knight b5. And look at this move. Look how disgusting this move is. They can't take, because if they take our knight with their light squared bishop, we take back with a check and we win the queen. So they can't do that. So what are they going to do? They're most likely going to move the queen. They don't have a lot of squares to move it. Probably somewhere like b6, I guess. And we're going to check them with the knight. The king is forced to the left, and we have a fork. They can't castle. We just want a rook, and we're completely winning the game. So again, another example of the tactics in this opening. And a lot of these are super hidden. Unless they know what they're doing, you're going to destroy players with this. I beat 2,000 rated players with this all the time. All right, so what if we get to this position and the opponent decides they don't want to take the c-pawn. They just want to develop and play normally, like the French player that they are. So some common moves you'll see, and I'm not going to go over every single move here because there is legitimately 20 lines. And this is another case where I recommend game review, and there's a lot of common concepts. I'm going to go over the common concepts you'll see when they don't take the pawn. So first things first, the common move is knight e7. We're always going to respond pawn h4 because their goal is to work their way over to knight g6, and we want to discourage that. We want to kick them out with pawn h5, and that's the reason we push our pawn. So they probably won't go there afterwards, or they'll go pawn h5, or they will go there afterwards. A lot of opponents do it anyways and don't care, but we're going to push the pawn and force them right back. And another common move that we want to make is knight d2. And you might think, why would we make this move? Weren't we waiting for them to take the pawn so we could take back with the knight? Yes, we were. But if they don't take it, we don't really have a choice. And they will take our pawn. And when they take back, this actually isn't bad. It's still pretty good for us because we have this open b file for the rook, and if we can get our bishop to a3 and eventually trade it for their own dark square bishop, if you can imagine us trading, they would either have to take with the king or take with the rook, and they would lose castling rights. So that's just a quick sample line. If they go knight e7, what else could they do? Let's back up. So instead of knight e7, let's say they go bishop c5. Now this actually is a threat versus the other line where we had a knight on c3. We had the move knight a4. Well, we don't have that in this case. So if we just make a lackluster move, for example purposes, they actually are threatening to take this c-pawn because if we take back, they actually just win our rook with this tactic. So for that reason, we have to approach this differently, and the move is pawn b4. And this pushes the bishop back, and these games get really tactical, really fast. But we're going to want to push this b pawn again, attack the knight, and when the knight moves, we're going to take this d pawn back with the knight, and we're now double defending this pawn, which cancels out their double attackers. So that's another quick sample line of something you might see. If they do a whole lot of nothing, we always are going to go knight d2, and when they take, we take back. Say they move their a pawn, we have rook b1, they're probably going to move back, and we eventually want to work our d knight on d2 over to b3, eventually to d4. So let's continue down the sample line. Let's say the opponent went knight e7. Remember, knight e7, ding, ding, ding. We got to go pawn h4. In this particular line, we only have 2 defenders, and they have 3 attackers. So what do? We need to defend one more time. Only way to defend is queen e2. So some of these lines are pretty forcing. If they decide to go pawn h5, which I think is the best move, we can always just snap off that knight. And we have this knight getting into g6, and we have some threats here. Like, this is an equal position. There is no such thing as an opening that wins on the spot, but this is one of the most tactical openings you can get. And unless the opponent really knows what they're doing, you will get an advantage out of the opening, especially if they take both pawns. If the opponent knows what's good for them, they're not going to take this pawn. Most of them don't, and most of them will take this pawn. And that is really where this opening shines the most. And if this happens to you, you should, in my opinion, win 90% of your games, because you're going to know the tactics way better than your opponent. And if they knew what they were doing, they would not go into this. Even though it is technically basically equal, white has a slight advantage. I think this jumps to +2, at least, in my opinion, because French players don't like these types of games. They like to play their boring little setup and do their same moves every time and just hide behind a wall of pawns. Anyways, I have some games I want to show y'all to prove I'm not full of shit, and I actually use these openings and they work against great players. So let's dive into those. All right, first game I want to show y'all was against Checkmate Master 3377, who was rated 2036. Let's go through it. So we get our French setup, we get to the cutoff point, and they decide to take both pawns. I take back with the knight, and they pin me. Now, I played this one slightly differently. I actually attacked the queen first. I could have very easily gone pawn a3 and gone the same position. The reason I did this is, here, I'll show you. So I attack the queen, they attack, I just take the pawn, and they have to take back with the knight. And now there's this one tactic that I didn't show in the theory, but I'm showing now, is we're attacking the knight and we're attacking the g pawn. So they take, we take back, attack the queen again, go rook b1, win the pawn, win the rook, win both rooks, and just absolutely crushing this 2000 rated player. It was never close. As soon as they took the pawn, the game was essentially over, and here they resigned. So just quick recap. Got the Gambit line, attacked the queen, they took back, have this nice tactic with the queen here, and I could have very easily, instead of attacking the queen with the bishop here, I could have very easily gone pawn a3, they take the knight, take back, and if they go knight e7, we've already transposed into what I showed before, and if they castle, Greek gift sacrifice, take, check, check, and we have a checkmate attack brewing. All right, next game. This one was a bullet game, but this was against a 2177 player. I use this a lot in bullet because it helps me sharpen my openings, and it's really good in fast time controls. So again, we get our French setup, they take, I go rook e1, they take, I go knight c3, they get their knight out, and I attack the queen, just like I showed in theory. The opponent makes a crazy move and takes the b pawn, which I showed why this is a mistake, because we now have knight b5. They throw in a desperation move and try to take our knight there, but we have this in-between move, checking the king, take the knight because the knight was free, and the queen can't take back, because if it takes back, we fork them. So instead, they get their other knight out, we fork them again, fork them one more time just for good measure, take the rook, they try to defend, we check them, and the opponent actually just resigns here because this is completely hopeless. So we basically beat this 2177 rated player in as soon as they accepted the gambit. One move, two moves is all it took for them to make a mistake. This is very hard to play for black, and even solid players like this 2177 lost their mind immediately. And you might say, oh, this is a bullet game. This opponent still had 53 seconds. It's not like they had 1 second left and they made this out of desperation. These moves look good on first glance, but if you know the tactics, you're gonna shit on these French players. All right, next game. Going forward, get our Milner-Berry Gambit set up, and they go rook c8, which is a new move. Again, there's a lot of moves the opponent can do here. I go pawn h4 because it's just a good in-between move. And here, I attack the dark squared bishop. They take the knight, take it back. I push the a-pawn, just like showed in theory. And already, the opponent castled, and this doesn't look like a mistake, but we have the Greek gift sacrifice. They take, we take back. I move the pawn forward because the bishop actually defends the knight here as well. They move to the right. We now have a discovery set up. And I did mess this up a little bit, but it eventually led to checkmate, and we won the game. So another example of how easy it is to mess up. Greek gift sacrifice comes out of nowhere. Next game. Get our setup. I go rook e1. And this is an example of a game where the opponent did not take the second pawn. So I'll show you how I navigated around that in this case. They go knight e7. Like I said before, we're always pushing the h-pawn when they don't take the pawn, and they go knight e7. That's the most common move. If they don't take the pawn, really the only other move they're going to do is bishop c5. And I already explained we want to go pawn b4 when that happens. So basically, when they don't take the pawn, it's almost guaranteed we're going pawn h4. All right, let's continue. They go pawn a5. I push the pawn again to never let the knight go there. I then go knight d2. So if they take, we can always take back, which is exactly what happens. I attack the queen on b1. And then I navigate the knight, just as I was saying before, to b3 to d4. They take, I take back, they get their bishop out, and here we just have a game. I did go on to win this just because all of the pieces were super active. I'm already up 4 here. Attack the queen with the bishop, check the king, get the knight in, take with the pawn, and the dagger is queen f4, and the reason being we're threatening checkmate on f7, and if the opponent tries to defend that with bishop e8, we have another checkmate on f8 because the bishop would then block the queen's view. So this is where the game ended. Checkmated them on f8, and it was a pretty solid game. Now the last game I want to go over was against the 1988. So let's fast forward to when we got the setup, and they go rook c8. I went pawn h4 right away. It wasn't necessarily the best move, but the only move to get an advantage for black was for them to go knight h6. Not very intuitive if you ask me. I then go knight d2. Again, we take back with the pawn. I go rook b1, and I start maneuvering my knight over to d4. They go knight f5. I take it to chop it off, and then I win the d-pawn. They attack the queen. I go back, and here is just another game of chess that I was able to win. But hopefully this provides an example of how you can actually use this opening when they don't take the pawn to still get good positions. The h-pawn actually ended up being very clutch here because the king is not safe at all. And here was a check, and what ended the game was a check on the king and a fork on the queen, and the opponent resigned. You won't find other videos like this on YouTube. I've checked, and I've learned all of this through trial and error, through game review. But try out this opening and let me know how it goes. And please humble these French players because they are the worst. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. See you next time.